G'day everyone, I am the anti-theocrat, and yes, this is another one of those things. How glad are you to have another one of these from me? Now, there's some clicking going on in the room, and there's a cat staring at me, which may not keep its mouth shut. And we'll get the 4-year-old, seeing as he can't keep quiet, to say g'day. Oi, say g'day. Yeah, that's all you're going to get. He's going to stay quiet now, isn't he? So that we can record this. We're going to cover an old favourite. Oh, look, before we do, I don't know what happened during this bit. My audio went a bit shit, and I'm just going to record over it. So, do what you make of it what you want, whatever. This is just a bit of fill anyway, and I was just talking about my AE board. Here it is, Shah. This is a plug for your board. Shah's a friend of mine. She asked me to do a review of her electric skateboard, and I said I would review it honestly, and she said, okay, whatever you do. And I did the review, and she gave me the board. I think I was actually lined up for getting the board before the review, which is nice, because the review could have gone anyway, but I actually love the board. I wish I got out on it more than I do. But this was actually recorded during a ride in China where I was. My wife told me I wasn't allowed to go out and kill myself on the thing, so I snuck out at 7 o'clock in the morning, rode half an hour out to the next town and half an hour back to the village, on these crappy concrete roads that run through the villages. And it was a ball, and I got to see a little more of the country than I've seen before, so it's all fun. Anyway, AE board, if you're looking for an electric skateboard, bloody nice board. The battery runs the whole length of the thing, so it's got great weight balance in the board itself. That's all I've got for you on that one. I'm out of here. Let's get back to the original audio and hope it worked. I do have to add one extra little bit, because apparently the Dicky audio carried on for a little bit longer. The introduction to this, yes, we are going to look at this article about the wage gap. And from there on, I'll let this anti-theocrat fella carry on. Wage gap again. Yay! We needed more wage gap in our lives, didn't we? Now, I was reminded of this because I watched this video by Aidan Paladin. If you don't know Aidan, I will link her video in the bottom. Third wave nepotism, women in the workplace. Which this morning Oi! You promised you were keeping quiet. Hey, God, you can't trust kids in the room when you're working. Actually, you should never work with kids or animals. As an entertainer, that's just a fact of life. Don't work with kids and animals. Yeah, this one, Men Will Win the Gender War, by everyone's favourite pommy git, Sargon. I'm going to actually rip off a bit of Sargon's video. That's why I got him paused where he is a little bit later on, just to give you a bit of a listen to what struck me about this video. I was doing other work and this came up in my auto feed, and I quite agreed with him on a couple of points. So I think it all works together, and hopefully Sargon won't hit me with a copyright strike, or will he? Yeah, look, we're not the BBC, are we? Surprised that women are still struggling for equal pay. You should be. On equal payday, let's confront the real reason women are paid less. Employers know that a successful challenge is incredibly unlikely. By Linda Scott, who's a dumb fuck. I will leave that. She's a dumb fuck. Shamira Ahmed launched the landmark equal pay case in October, claiming she was paid 85% less than her male equivalent as a BBC presenter. As a BBC presenter. I am an entertainer. It is the choice of trade I made after I dropped out of my trading industry. After I became an at-home father, I set up a business, my own business, doing entertainment. I didn't rely on other people or arts grants or any of that sort of shit. I just went into it. I knew I had a talent and I went into it. These people contract for their jobs. They are given contracts based on their experience and their ability and the audience they will draw. This woman was paid 85% less. Chances are she was worth 85% less. Or her agent was shithouse at negotiating. This is not the BBC's problem. The BBC's problem is that apparently they like to publish their employees' rates of pay. Now, as someone who has been an employee, all I can tell you is there is nothing I want more than the world knowing exactly how much I'm getting paid. What a fucking pleasure it must be to have your private matters like that just spilled out for everyone to know, especially if you're a multi-million-dollar presenter, you know, you just want everyone to know exactly how much you've got in your fucking pocket. I have problems with this, as you may be able to tell. There is a lot of fucking sarcasm in that comment. Anyway, it's because the BBC decided to publish all this shit that she knows she got paid less, and she assumes it's just because she's female. Or, well, she assumes that she's paid less anyway. The story says that, you know, it's because of sexism. Maybe that's the claim she's making. I think she's a fucking idiot. And I don't even know the case, but I'm guessing she's a fucking idiot. She should have negotiated for more. After all, she fits right into the, you know, BBC's quota thing. She's just the right colour and just the right, you know, thing to fit the BBC's ideals. Right, I'm going to move on. Rant over. If a national government stood aside for 5 decades while the legal rights of half its citizens were heedlessly trampled, one might expect it to lose the public's trust. Yet that's exactly why British men endure a massive sentencing gap, and no one seems to notice. Fuck. Sorry, I've read that wrong. Yet that's exactly why British women endure a massive gender pay gap, and no one seems to notice. No one seems to notice, yet there's an equal pay day, and there's these fucking court cases with people claiming to have been paid less. And there's this article in the Guardian, a UK story in the Australian edition, but in the Guardian is this story and nobody fucking seems to notice. This year, the 14th of November, is Equal Pay Day. Wait. Hey, promises, remember? Oh, 4-year-olds, don't work with them. Because of the gender pay gap, this is the last day in January that women in the UK are paid to work. This is the assumption that if you put a woman's pay and a man's pay alongside one another, a woman would work the rest of the year for free because she's been underpaid, which we all know is a crock of shit. But anyway, that's the assumption. Apparently, the 14th of November is the day that women are working for free onward from that day. The data spells out clearly who is underpaid. Yes, people who work shitty jobs like childcare and part-time. Yeah. And that's not being underpaid. That's making certain choices or having only certain opportunities open to you. I don't see the problem. But does not reveal the real reason why millions of female workers are unfairly compensated. Are they? Millions. Millions are unfairly compensated. You've given us one example. Do you have millions of examples? I mean, you're claiming that all women, essentially, because from the 14th of November, women all work for free. You're essentially claiming all women are underpaid. Down here, you say millions of female workers are unfairly compensated. For what? Doing nothing? When I was in industry, I worked over the top of molten cyanide vats. I worked over the top of furnaces. I actually melted the soles off a pair of boots standing on a furnace once. I've been in the hulls of ships. I have hung off the top of fuel storage units. You know, those massive, great round things that store petroleum. Have you done any of that? Where are you making your big money for dangerous work? I assume you've never done that. I have 2 female partners, and they both work fairly clean jobs compared to the jobs I've done. Although one of them works in an office. Her hourly rate, even though she's at the top of her game, is less than my other partner, who works shittier jobs, but gets a better hourly rate. And is part-time, so overall she's earning less. And there's your gender pay gap. And by the way, I've been an at-home father for 22 odd years. I am the gender pay gap. I made those choices. So you can't fucking pull this out as women, are getting ripped off. Because I know what this is. I could never return to my trade or any of the big money I might be able to make through my trade. I am out of trade. I have done work in my trade only on a casual basis and employed by myself, right? Self-employed. I started my first business venture was in my trade. So I no longer could go and work for someone else and simply expect to walk in and get the same money as someone who never took 22 years out to be a parent. He's playing a Mario game, and I don't know which one it is, but it's just impossible for him to stay quiet.
Hey, Dad, it's Super Mario Big Player.
Okay, but shh, we're recording here. Okay. So yes, I'm not buying any of this shit. Women aren't paid equally because in practice British law doesn't protect them and their employers know it. So this is the crux of the story. It's not just that women are being underpaid, but employers know they can get away with it. After 50 years under equality legislation, no Western country has closed the gender pay gap. It's because it's not real. And for all of the same reasons. I'd like to read that again. After 50 years under equality legislation, no Western country has closed the sentencing gap for all the same reasons. I wonder which of these things is worse. I wonder that just because I have a set of balls between my legs, I could be sentenced heavier than you could be for exactly the same crime. Or you get to moan about getting paid less for doing a fucking shittier job than I've ever done in my life. I've done some really crap jobs to make the money I've made in my life. And you've probably always sat over a fucking desk typing shit like this on a computer. When these laws were enacted, the burden of enforcement was put on the backs of individuals. Yes, it probably was, and I don't have an issue with that. Do you really want other people to be watching what you're doing all your life? Women had to bear the expense and risk of claiming their rights by themselves. And exactly how many men died in the early years of the union movement so you could just fucking expect this shit? How many men lost their jobs in protests and marches and whatever in the fuck else happened? Because men were the activists when I was in my trade. Men were the primary activists in my early years of work. I've been in the workforce since the 80s. And it was men being sacked, laid off, because they were trying to get better rights for themselves. The rights... Oi! The rights you simply expect. Right? So go fuck yourself that you think that having to, go and complain that you're being underpaid is a hardship. The reason you're allowed to do that is because men died for your rights. And by the way, men also have to bear this expense when they find themselves fucked over in the workplace. If our safety is on the line, if our wages are on the line, if our hours of work are being stretched, we also have to go through this shit, and it is also difficult for us. This is not a fucking women's issue. When their cases have been heard, judiciaries have been at best inconsistent in their decisions. It is the nature of judiciaries, just for the record, to be inconsistent. But we'll move on because you're going to give us more meat to this argument. Now, many women have little faith that they will see justice and are overwhelmed by the cost and risks. So most pay discrimination goes unchecked. Well, first, I don't believe there is as much pay discrimination as you believe there is. And I don't believe that where there is pay issues, it is only the women who suffer it. We've had a case here in Australia where a group of men argued that they'd been underpaid and they won it. So this is not a female issue. As you keep spitting out, this is a female issue. You just want to make this about fucking sexism, and it's not about sexism. And yes, again, these difficulties are things men also face. We also face the fact that judiciaries are inconsistent. Meanwhile, employers have learned that the risk of a successful equal pay lawsuit against them approaches zero, so the practice of underpaying women goes on. Do you know how many corporations here in Australia have just been busted for underpaying their staff? And not just the women, their staff. And a company like Woolworths getting busted wasn't just Woolworths. This must have been through the parent company that these things were being done, because it was a lot of brands belonging to the same parent corporation doing the same thing. And it wasn't the only corporation doing it. And it wasn't just doing it to women. For the ordinary British household, the risks involved in pressing an equal pay claim are staggering. The legal fees can range from $35,000 to $150,000, sometimes higher, a significant amount for most people, even if the claim is settled. Yes, but I assume that in the settlement you get to write off your legal fees to them. And, yeah. Anyway, I'll keep reading. I know where this is going. Most women never gain access to formal documents that show they've been paid unequally. Instead, after years, individuals may only suspect unfairness. So you're talking about ringing up a $35,000 to $150,000 legal bill because you suspect you are being treated unfairly. You know what I've done when I've suspected I've been treated unfairly in a workplace? I have abused my fucking boss and walked off the job. I've quit jobs because I wasn't being treated fairly. And do you hear this voice? I know it's not a deep, resonant male voice, but it is a male voice. And this man behind this voice has quit jobs because he was treated unfairly. You see, this isn't a woman's issue. But when you only suspect unfairness, then maybe the best thing to do is shut the fuck up or leave. Not bitch and moan about what you think might be going on. If a woman does speak, she may do so without the help of colleagues. The British taboo against talking about pay is strong. Yeah, I had this out right at the start, didn't I? I don't want people. I'm not British, by the way. I'm an Australian, and I don't want to discuss my pay with other people. My financial affairs are my fucking business. I've actually had to train one of my partners to understand that. He's bloody Chinese and didn't seem to have that. You don't discuss your finances with other people. It's not necessary. It's not their business. It's not a taboo. It's just not their fucking business. And then this help of colleagues thing, on the basis that you suspect unfairness, you want your colleagues to put their jobs on the line? You're a fucking moron. Other people have mortgages and shit too, you know. Now, if they don't suspect they are being treated unfairly, then maybe they have a reason to not support you. All of this creates a profound stress for women and their families. Never for men and their families, though, I guess. When I've quit my job because I've been treated like shit, of course it's been difficult for our family, and we've managed to get past it and work out something else. But my first partner and myself, we switched jobs a few times. She was in the workforce, and when she was out of it, I was in it. And we made ends meet however we could. It is stressful. But imagining a problem and getting all worked up about it. Fucking hell. Her workplace may grow unfriendly. Yeah, if she's a moaning bitch, nobody wants to work with her. And there could be anger at home. So she's bringing her problems home, and I'm guessing you're not calling her an abuser. If a man brought his anger problems home from work because he thought he was being discriminated against, you'd call him an abuser. So what you're describing to me is a female abuser. She's upset. Something's not going exactly the way she wants it at work, and she's going to take that home and make it part of their home life. She's an abuser. All the while, the process for pursuing the claim is slow and unpredictable, filled with requirements that do little but run the clock. Employers have an interest in dragging things out, hoping to bleed the employee until she, never he, can no longer afford to continue and gives up. For the woman living through an equal pay case is sheer torture. This is the video that Sargon that I'm going to play of Sargon's. I might actually slot it in now if you don't mind. Hit us with your stuff, Sargon. Hang on, we'll do a bit of fiddling here.
8 out of 10 women have felt unable to cope in the past year. Here's why we're so stressed. Listen, Chitra Ramaswamy. You're weak. You are weak. You can't cope with pain. You can't cope with modern life. You're unable to get to the top. And I'm not obligated to give a shit because we're in direct competition with you. We, the men, are in competition with you, the women, which is what the women you have asked for with women's liberation. Why would you think I would care if you're fucking stressed? Why should I? What obligation do I have to you? It's nuts that you think I should give a fuck about why you're upset, why you're stressed, and why 8 out of 10 women can't cope. And what all that's really saying, right, is that 8 out of 10 women weren't ready for women's liberation.
Get the fuck out. Get the fuck out. Stop competing with us. Stop being in the game. You're a whingy cunt. Thank you, Sargon, for that. I'm glad I came across that because I actually recorded a bit of this yesterday and didn't like it. And then this morning I came across that quote from Sargon and I thought I'm going to so use that. The complaint does not gain access to official compensation information until her case arrives at the employment tribunal. Again, never him. At that point, months of sparring with the employer will have passed, including time spent trying to get the boss to do the right thing and going through arbitration, activities that are expected by the court. So the UK has a method of arbitration for these cases, does it? You see, we have this in Australia too. And that means you're not in the courts paying those big legal fees. What you're talking about when you talk about these legal fees is you're talking about this idiot who's on a contract, because she can't just take it to arbitration, or maybe she did take it to arbitration and she still thinks she's unfairly treated because the BBC said, you're just not fucking worth it. You were just our quota employee. I can just imagine the BBC saying that. Anyway, yeah, this is just crazy shit, this whole thing. So yes, anyway, what you're telling me is there is a employment tribunal, and you can go through arbitration. And so all of this shit about the costs and risks and everything else, I'm guessing while you're in arbitration you can't be fired, so you're still in the job and you're still getting paid. And because you're in arbitration, that's why the workplace gets a little bit narky with you. You know, these are all things that anyone in this situation can expect, not just a woman. And as I have noted in the past, there are men in Australia who have gone through this process and won it. So this is not a women's issue. Righto, I'm going to start down here. Oh, meanwhile, the meter is ticking and the woman still doesn't know for sure if she is unequally paid. So she's got no fucking idea if she's even unequally paid. But she's going through all this shit. She has no fucking idea. She's just guessing, and she's going to this arbitration anyway. And then taking it to the courts. And she still doesn't know. No wonder you're worried about wearing the legal costs. You're fucking just taking flippant bloody cases out, aren't you? I tell you, I've quit jobs on suspicion I was being treated like shit. I've quit jobs because I was being treated like shit. This matters a lot, because if her own information turns out to be wrong, the employer can ask the court to make her pay their lawyers as well as her own. Yet there is no complementary provision for the woman to recover what it cost to make the employer pay what she was owed in the first place. And this is different from men in the same situation. How? If a man finds himself to be unsafe, for instance, do you think that any compensation is going to be as easily recovered? Do you? Let's go on, because I do have an argument here. The risks are astronomical, but the possible payoff is by comparison minuscule. 6 years of back pay is what a woman can expect to recover in a successful claim. If a woman makes $40,000 a year and the man in the same job makes $45,000, the most she can recover is $30,000. Now, this is all just fucking wishy-washy, up in the air supposition. You really don't know this shit, do you? I bet you cannot show this to be a consistent thing across all cases. Or look, even the bloody figures you've guessed for how much they're being paid are just guesswork. Your BBC presenter wasn't being paid this much. She was being paid more. Her lawyer will bill her at least that much. In effect, most British women cannot afford to make an equal pay claim, no matter how erroneous the offence. Now, this is where my argument comes in, because I have a brother, uncle to my young'un over here, who lost the use of almost 3 fingers on a hand. He was a safety officer in a factory, and the factory pushed him to test a set of gloves in a machine that he was working on, and the gloves grabbed in the machine, pulled his fingers in, and broke them quite badly, mangled, we could say. He took that case to up to courts, and he was granted a payout. A payout much in line with the figures you've given us, in fact, of which he received a couple of $1,000 because the lawyers took the whole fucking lot. Now, why is your woman so fucking special? All she lost was a little bit of pay. My brother lost the use of at least 2 fingers. What the fuck do you think you are trying to make this about? My father was disabled in a motorcycle accident, riding his bike home from school. A woman decided to sideswipe him with a 70s Fairlane. That's a big fucking car. She basically shattered his right-hand side. He died that night. He's been dead 3 times over the years. He is disabled because of that accident. We saw very little in the way of compensation for his being disabled. All you are fucking talking about is a woman thinking she may have been underpaid. And should she actually find, through all the bloody work she goes to, that she has been underpaid, she might not get the money. Guess the fuck what? People rarely get the money. When we hear about pay settlements out of court, we often imagine stacks of cash handed over to the woman behind a complaint, never the man. And the truth is that she is often forced to accept a smaller settlement just to cut her losses and get out. Well, at least she's fucking getting something, eh? Did you want the lawyers to get it all again? The system is essentially a gentleman's agreement to contain sex discrimination claims. You haven't yet proven to me that this is about sex discrimination. Every fucking point you've made could easily have been made about men in the same situation. Every single fucking one of them. If the government sincerely wants British women to be paid fairly, it would step up to its responsibility to protect the rights of citizens instead of forcing individuals to be their own police. Until equal pay enforcement is reformed, there will be plenty more shocking statistics to come. I don't want the government in my pocket. I don't know if you really, really want the government in your pocket. Do you want the government to know your spending habits? Do you want them to know where you go on holiday? Do you want them to check the cost of everything that you ever buy and how much you get paid for anything you ever sell, including your labour? Because I don't. We have a minimum wage in this country. I'm more than happy for it to exist. I'm more than happy for that to be the situation. I'm more than happy to be able to fight where I haven't been paid fairly for something. But really, I don't want the government in my pocket. I don't know why you would want the government in your pocket. Maybe they would find against you. There have been enough studies to show that graduates going into the workforce, women are paid more than men. Would you like that to be under the government's scrutiny? In any case, I've covered this. I'm going to leave you the link for Aiden and her piece. She does a really good job of just killing off the wage gap myth right at the start. And then she goes into, nepotism, doesn't she? But she's covering why workplaces are not male-orientated. And she does a very good job of it, Aiden. If you don't know her, give her a go. Links will be below. You all know Sargon, and I've given you his bit of spin there. Love the smirk. Man, you do a good job. But I can't watch those fucking 2-hour rambles you and those other guys do. Stick with this shit, will you? Like it. At that point, I'm ducking out. I've been the anti-theocrat. This has been one of those things. May your gods remain fictional. May 4-year-olds not be in my studio in future. And I will see you in the next one.